Okay, time now for our political panel, and joining us, Labor MP Kate Thwaites from Melbourne. Kate, welcome back. And Liberal MP James Stephens from his hometown of Adelaide. Welcome to you too. James, let's get over as much ground as we can today, perhaps starting with The Voice, and a technical question maybe for you, Kate, because one of your duties in the Parliament is as chair of the Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters. Will there be a review of the conduct of this referendum, and would you look at things like this, minor, I think it's a pretty minor issue, of matching colour schemes between the Yes campaign and the AEC? Is that material? Is that something you'd want to look at?
Thanks, Greg, and I'll start by noting that James is a valued member of that committee as well that I chair. Look, it's up to the Minister to decide whether he refers an inquiry into the process around conducting the referendum to the committee after the referendum's held. We do, as a matter of course, conduct an inquiry into how federal elections are conducted after every federal election, and as you know, we're currently still finalising that inquiry. In terms of this issue of the signs, the AEC is there to uphold the rules. That's what they're doing. Everyone should obey the rules in a referendum and an election environment. All
right. Well, I suppose, James, as a member of the committee, you would have to await that referral from the Minister. I understand, as a sidebar, James, you've been out campaigning today with Karen Little and others there in Adelaide. Within your own seat, this will skew heavily yes, won't it, on all available indicators? You comfortable with that?
Well, I think my electorate will be voting no. I think the state of South Australia will be voting no. That's certainly the feeling and the feedback I'm getting from across my community. I've been campaigning pretty hard for months now on this. I feel very strongly about it. And look, for me, it's not about what's good for me. It's about the merit of the policy position. But certainly my sense is that my electorate will be voting no to this referendum, and everything I can do to contribute to that, I'll keep doing over the next 2 weeks.
All right. Well, we referred in an earlier interview on the program to an essential poll out today. Kate, to you, at least you could say that the yes vote has maybe bottomed out and climbed back ever so slightly, 2 points to 43%. I see in the context of Voice discussions today that Father Frank Brennan has described it as dreadful that the Prime Minister sought to suggest the referendum would have been worthwhile even if it does in fact fail from here. Is that a fair criticism? Because there will be a long tail of division from this, won't there, if the referendum does fail?
I haven't seen those comments specifically, Greg, but I think it is important that we bring this referendum to the Australian people. There has been years of work go into this. There has been decades and decades of Aboriginal people petitioning the Parliament and the Australian people for a greater say over their own lives. There were years and years of work that led into the Uluru Statement from the Heart, this proposal that's come from Aboriginal people for a voice to Parliament. That's what we're putting in the referendum, a request from Aboriginal people to the people of Australia for them to have a say over their own lives, and for that to mean that we get better outcomes for them in their lives. It's not a radical change. I think it is very important that our government has shown we are prepared to listen to those Aboriginal voices and to take this referendum forward. All right.
Well, James, you've already said that you think across the state of South Australia and nationally that the Voice is going to fail. What of that suggestion by the Prime Minister that it would have been worthwhile nevertheless just to have had a go because it has elevated Indigenous disadvantage to something that is front of mind for Australians? Does that make it worthwhile?
No, I don't think so. I think it's heartbreaking that probably we will have gone through all of this to have a divided and broken nation on the other side of this referendum campaign. There are so many things that we could unite around and work together on in addressing issues of Indigenous disadvantage, and instead the Prime Minister has turned this into a, partisan political campaign, a battle that, has seen Australians regrettably turn against each other. And I think we've missed the opportunity of talking about serious practical changes that can help Indigenous Australians, and it is going to be a very difficult task after this referendum to piece the country back together. So if he's proud of that and thinks it's a good idea, that's up to him to brag about, but I think it's quite heartbreaking.
All right, well, let's get to that beyond the 14th. Kate, I want to move on to something that I know you've been active on over the years, and this is paid parental leave superannuation. I think the bill would be paid by the government, obviously. Labor has stopped short of doing it for affordability reasons, but now it has this demand from the Greens. You don't get your $2.3 billion in super tax revenue unless you accede to this policy demand. You must be conflicted by this as a very strong supporter of superannuation on PPL.
Greg, I'm actually not conflicted. I do support putting superannuation on paid parental leave, and our government has said that that is something we intend to do when circumstances allow us to do it. The reality is we've come into government with a budget that was really not in the position it should be. And this measure that we are bringing forward and what has changed to superannuation for people who have very large superannuation balances is part of doing that budget repair work. Now, we need to do the budget repair work so that we can spend on important things like superannuation, like the childcare reforms we've put in place, like the expansion of paid parental leave that we have already put in place to make our paid parental leave scheme stronger and more flexible. I hope to encourage more men to take up paid parental leave so that we're sharing that care and gender balance role. So we've made some important changes in this space. I think our commitment to putting super on paid parental leave is clear, and we have said we will do that when circumstances allow. Right,
which leaves the question, when might that be? I'll come back to that if I get a chance. But James Stephens, we know very clearly what position the opposition is going to take on the government's super tax changes. You're definitely against that. But on super on top of PPL that Kate's talking about, can you see circumstances in which you'd support that if it was a byproduct of a deal with the Greens also?
Well, no, not within this circumstance. I mean, I think there's merit in super on paid parental leave. That's probably a separate policy question for us, unrelated to the tax hikes that are being proposed on super. Look, I suspect that the government will cave into the Greens on this. That's basically their modus operandi on all negotiations with the Greens. So I suspect they'll pay the price that the Greens have asked in exchange for supporting this change, and we'll see it implemented. That'll be a good thing on the paid parental leave side, but a terrible thing for all of those people that have provisioned for their retirement that are now seeing this government start to, plunder their retirement savings. And I suspect it's just the beginning of a lot of other tax hikes on retirees as well. Well,
I know that debate will rage as the legislation moves into the parliament, but you're indicating there, James Stephens, that personally on the narrower question of super paid on paid parental leave, you are actually sympathetic to that, are you?
Oh, there's a whole range of things I'd love to spend money on if we had it. We've got to balance these decisions, against the revenue impacts, etc. So I'm just saying that within this debate, we certainly won't be supporting increasing tax on superannuation, even if it includes that measure. We're fundamentally and very strongly opposed to the overarching policy position the government's putting forward.
OK, and Kate, the if not now, when question, obviously the budget was doing pretty well last financial year. There is some expectation that it'll do pretty well in this current financial year. Are you prepared to argue publicly for super on PPL to happen in this first term of the Labor government?
Greg, as I've said, I am very comfortable with the position we've taken, which is that we will do this when it is practical and when we can do it. I know the Treasurer has a commitment. He's been very clear about that commitment. He and I have discussed that commitment. I'm comfortable with that, and I am comfortable with the work that this government has done to support women and to support working families. The changes we've made to make childcare cheaper, as I said, the increases that we have made to paid parental leave so that it is a stronger system, it is more flexible for working families, it is allowing more dads to take time off with their young children. These are all really crucial reforms, and they are reforms that have come in just this first year of our Labor government. So I think our track record here is strong. Of course, there is more work to be done. But we have been very clear as a Labor government that we not just support women, but we support families in this space. And we know that this is good policy for them and for the country more broadly.
All right. Well, somehow I think we will come back to this in the context of the super tax debate, because that one looks like being a white knuckle ride, at least through the Senate. James Stephens, Kate Thwaites, there's more we could have spoken about, but alas, time has beaten us today.